The next candidate's website that I'm going to analyze is Dr. Rich McCormick's. We're going to start here on his About page, Why I'm Running. Decorated Marine, emergency room doctor, conservative Republican. His entire life, Rich has gone all in on everything he's done. From serving as a Marine Corps pilot to saving lives as an emergency room doctor, Rich has always been all in on any challenge he's ever faced. Now he's going all in to be our next congressman so he can fix our healthcare crisis, keep our nation and community safe, and grow economic opportunity for all. Decorated Marine. With over 20 years in the U.S. Marine Corps and Navy, Rich served in combat zones in Africa, the Persian Gulf, and Afghanistan. As a Marine, he flew helicopters and taught at Georgia Tech and Morehouse College as the Marine Corps officer instructor. In the Navy, Rich earned the rank of commander and served as the department head for the Emergency Medicine Department in Afghanistan. Emergency room doctor. As a pilot and emergency medicine physician, Rich has the experience and decisiveness to make major decisions on a moment's notice. He has the leadership acumen to bring together a team of talented individuals to overcome almost any obstacle. Rich is a graduate of Morehouse School of Medicine, where he was also student body president, and completed residency in emergency medicine through Emory while training at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. He also received his MBA from National University in California. Conservative Republican. Rich and his wife, Deborah, an oncologist, have 7 children and live in Swanee. The McCormick's are members of Gwinnett Church, where Rich is a small group leader for high school students. 2020 is our chance to send the right person for the job to Washington. Rich McCormick is a decorated Marine veteran and a practiced physician that has spent his lifetime fighting for our values and will continue to do so in Washington, D.C. Alright, so now from here we're going to go to his issues, just like with all the other candidates, and talk about each of them. My commitment to you. Healthcare reformed. Healthcare is a mess. Obamacare was a disaster, and now the Democrats are doubling down on it by pushing a single-payer system that would cost $32 trillion over the next decade. As an emergency physician who treats patients regardless of their insurance status, Dr. Rich McCormick is infinitely familiar with the costs of healthcare and understands that a single-payer healthcare system would be the biggest step the nation could take towards socialism. His unique experience in healthcare and in government spending make him the ideal candidate to find solutions for patient care and defend against the socialist agenda, which would rob patients of access to and quality of services. To fix healthcare and make it more affordable and accessible, it's time to send a physician, not a politician, to Washington. In Congress, Rich will champion patient-centered healthcare solutions, protect those with pre-existing conditions, end surprise medical billing, slash federal mandated paperwork that robs physicians of time with patients, stop socialized medicine that would eliminate 160 million private insurance plans. So let's just start with this. The federal government doesn't have any business meddling with healthcare. So protecting those with pre-existing conditions is really not within the federal government's purview. And again, like I talked about with the last candidate, that's what Obamacare tried to do. Obamacare trying to guarantee insurance to those with pre-existing conditions, which only raises the cost of health care, particularly health insurance. But basically, to protect those with pre-existing conditions, we need a better free market, a more free market is what I mean. Get government regulations out, let the free market take care of itself, and ultimately competition will drive prices down. But the federal government doesn't have a whole lot to do except for getting out of the way and releasing this market to be free. Next issue. Borders secured. During his time as a Marine aviator and naval commander, Rich served in combat zones in Afghanistan, the Middle East, and Africa. He saw America's force for good in those regions and understands why people want to move to our nation to create a better life for their families. But as someone who swore an oath to defend our nation's Constitution, Rich firmly believes that those wanting to immigrate here must follow the laws of our nation and do so legally. To stop violent immigrants from entering our country and combat the flow of illicit drugs and child trafficking, Rich will build the barriers needed to secure the border, provide Border Patrol with more resources, technology, and manpower, identify and deport violent, criminal, illegal immigrants. So a few things here is, yes, provide Border Patrol with more resources is something within Congress's purview, but actually building the barriers is the executive department. And again, to do that, we got to get the judiciary off the executive's back. That which is the one thing Congress can do in that regard, which is impeach justices that are violating the law by holding up the enforcement of it, and to block federal courts from even ruling on immigration issues. The other thing is identifying and deporting violent criminals. That again, same thing, that's an executive position, not really something that Congress will be dealing with. I mean, he can mention his position, obviously, but he doesn't have the power to actually enforce it. That's the executive that enforces that. All right, next issue. Opportunity restored. Raised by a single mother, Dr. Rich McCormick got his first job in middle school as a paperboy. By the age of 16, a busboy and cook. He worked his way through college, and through hard work, he was able to obtain his share of the American dream. Rich wants to ensure his kids and all our families have that same opportunity. As congressman, Rich will work to empower the private sector while stopping the slide towards socialism. Double down on President Trump's tax cuts, dismantle the job-killing regulatory state, promote entrepreneurship and innovation to grow the economy. Okay, so the first two, no problem with. This third one is, how are you going to promote entrepreneurship? Are we talking about taking federal funds to give to private enterprise? Because that's not constitutional, and that's essentially picking winners and losers. Dismantling job-killing regulations in the regulatory state, that is the most important thing that we can do right now. Tax cuts are good, don't get me wrong, they're very good. But what really needs to happen is not just tax cuts, but a simplified tax code that makes it easier and less hassle for everybody to even file taxes. I don't think people should have to file taxes. I think it should just be so simplified that individuals don't have to file, and whatever businesses have to file should be so simple that we need to drive tax lawyers out of a job. Straight up. Okay, next issue. America strengthened. Rich swore an oath to defend the nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. As someone who sacrificed time with family to serve during times of war, Rich knows the critical importance of building a lethal military force that can defend our national security at a moment's notice. In Congress, Rich will continue upholding the oath he took, just as he did in his service in combat zones. Ensuring America and her allies are secure. He will ensure that our nation keeps its promise to our veterans when they come home. Restore America's military might, protect America's interests first, deliver better health care to veterans. So I don't have a problem with any of those. Although the best way, I believe, to deliver better health care is to, instead of forcing them to go through the VA in order for us to fund for their health care, is to give veterans a voucher that they can spend at any healthcare facility they need. I think that that's the best thing that we can do. He doesn't mention that specifically, but he does say that we need to deliver better healthcare. Next thing, faith renewed. Rich is wholly invested in supporting his family, serving his faith, and building a community right here in Gwinnett and Forsyth. Most importantly, he will remain a local resident after the election is over, because Rich knows that strong families and communities require long-term personal investments. Rich is committed to creating a culture of health and wellness in our community. As an ER doctor, he's treated too many overdose victims and seen too many lives devastated by drug addiction. As the head of the polypharmacy multidisciplinary committee at Camp Lejeune Naval Medical Center, he wrote and helped enforce policy that reduced the number of concerning polysubstance abusers by over 65% in 1 year. Rich believes that investing in the youth of America is an investment in the future. He has been active in youth ministry for over 25 years. As a physician and student leader, he has seen how human trafficking and sex abuse has devastated not just families, but entire communities. Domestic violence is a reality that Dr. McCormick treats all too often, and he recognizes the need to support outreach and advocacy groups throughout the district. Rich is prepared to tackle the tough challenges facing the community, combating opioid abuse and help those struggling with addiction find treatment, end the scourge of human trafficking and punish traffickers, support and assist those sheltering and protecting the defenseless, protect life at every stage from the unborn to the infirmed. So, interesting thing here is because sex trafficking is a form of slavery, the federal government does have a role that they can play. Under the 13th Amendment, Congress is able to punish that. I believe sex traffickers should be punished with death. Plain and simple. I don't believe in lighter sentences than that for that kind of crime. Combating the opioid abuse problem is another issue. I don't know how much the federal government can do on that. There may be some things, but it's very minimal because, again, the medical industry is not something that the federal government really is supposed to be involved in. That's supposed to be done on the individual state level. There's a lot of things the states can do, and that's not to say that the federal government can't do anything, but there's limits to what it can do on it. Protecting life at every stage. The interesting thing there, and I completely agree, of course, he's the first one that didn't mention only late term, but just mentioned unborn in general, which is good. But when I actually spoke to Dr. McCormick, the problem is I asked him what he would do as a congressman to try to put an end to abortion. And he told me that with the way that politics is right now, with the amount of Democrats in there, with the few Republicans that won't support pro-life measures even, we're not going to be able to get anything passed that will secure life. And there's really a heart issue, and we need to change hearts and minds first. The problem I have with that is that it sounds like you're not really committed to doing a whole lot to actually tackle the issue. We need to fight hard on the issue. Duty is ours, results are God's. Okay? Slavery was also a heart issue. but we had to decriminalize it, or criminalize it, sorry. It was already criminalized. Technically, it was already illegal. But we had to enforce the rights of everyone. And it ultimately, of course, boiled over to the Civil War. But we had to do that to put an end to the sinful action first. Hearts and minds can be changed after we start enforcing what is right. That's not to say that we can't do them both at the same time. That's not to say that we can't try to change hearts and minds now. But it is to say that we need to protect life regardless as to what hearts and minds of people is at. And the more they get away from having abortion as an option, the more the less affection they have towards it, and the more indifference they'll have, not for the unborn, but for the issue of sympathy for those who commit abortions. They'll have less sympathy for them as they become more distant to them. So that's Dr. Rich McCormick's website. We have one more thing to read on it, and that's rights protected. As a Marine aviator and naval commander, Rich swore an oath to defend the Constitution. He knows that the Constitution is crystal clear in guaranteeing the rights of responsible citizens to arm and protect themselves with a firearm. Well, it actually doesn't mention responsible in the Constitution, but okay. Rich will also stand up to the radical socialists in Congress and advance the principles that made America the greatest, most prosperous nation in the world. He will always rely on free market principles to grow the economy, not government. So protect the right of law-abiding gun owners, defend the Constitution and religious liberty, stop the slide towards socialism. All of that I don't have a really big problem with. Yeah, all that seems pretty good. Although I do wonder how much he knows about the Constitution, just because a lot of people don't really know about it, and I've spent basically 10 years studying it. So there we go. That's Dr. Rich McCormick's website. Actually, so far, I think that he's been the best candidate of the ones that I've analyzed on their websites. With that, I'm going to end the video and talk to you guys next time.